Hello and welcome back to B Master 79. In this lesson we are taking on speaking topic 46. Describe a person you have met who you want to work or study with. We will plan it, we will hear a full band 9 long turn, and then we will go through all 6 part 3 questions. A quick note on honesty. When we say band 9, that is our own assessment against the public ielts band descriptors. It is not a certified examiner score, and the candidate, Trang, and the person she describes, Deep, are both invented for teaching. Copy the technique, please, not the content. Here is the plan for the next few minutes. First, how part 2 actually works, so you know what the examiner is doing. Then the cue card itself, word for word. Then the 1 minute of planning, which is the most underused minute in the whole test. After that, the full model answer, broken into the 4 bullets. Then part 3, all 6 questions, each one with the thinking first and the answer second. And we finish with 2 language banks and the band 9 criteria. Part 2 is the same every single time. The examiner hands you a card and a pencil. You get 1 minute to prepare. Then you speak for 1 to 2 minutes on your own with no interruption. The examiner will stop you at 2 minutes, and that is completely normal, so do not treat it as a bad sign. 2 things worth knowing. Nobody is checking whether your story is true. And the 4th bullet, the explain bullet, is worth more than the other 3 put together. Here is the card, exactly as it is printed. You should say who this person is, how you met this person, how long you have known him or her, and explain why you want to work or study with him or her. Notice the shape of that. 3 quick facts, and then 1 question that asks for a reason. The first 3 bullets are the runway. The 4th one is the flight. So, that 1 minute. Most candidates waste it writing full sentences, and then they read those sentences out loud, and it sounds like reading because it is. Here is a better way to spend it. And this is genuinely all Trang wrote in her minute. Keywords, no sentences, no grammar, nothing she would be tempted to read out loud. Look at how lopsided it is. The first 3 lines are just labels. The last line is the only one with an actual argument in it, and that is the line she will lean on hardest. Right. Here is the full long turn, broken into the 4 bullets so you can see the structure while you listen. This is Trang speaking.
The person I'd like to talk about is a woman called Deep, who is a senior researcher on the product team where I did my internship. She's in her early 30s, and she has that fairly rare combination of being genuinely brilliant at what she does while being completely unpretentious about it. I first came across her at a 2-day design sprint that my university ran with a few local companies. I'd been assigned to her group more or less at random, and I remember being quite intimidated at first because everyone else seemed to know exactly what they were doing. What struck me almost immediately, though, was that she made a deliberate point of drawing out the quietest people in the room. She asked me what I thought about 3 minutes in, and she actually listened to the answer, which sounds like a small thing, but it completely changed how much I contributed over those 2 days. So I've known her for a little over 2 years now. We stayed in touch after the sprint. She ended up supervising my internship the following summer, and these days we catch up every couple of months, usually over coffee. As for why I'd love to work with her again, I think it comes down to the quality of her feedback. Most people either tell you everything's fine, which is useless, or they pick your work apart without telling you what to do instead, which is worse. Deep does neither. She'll point at one specific thing, explain exactly why it isn't landing, and then hand you a way forward. And beyond that, she raises the standard of whoever's in the room. When she's on a project, nobody wants to turn in something half-finished, and that's a kind of pressure I find motivating rather than exhausting.
Let us look at what that actually was. Every one of these figures was measured from the audio you just heard, not estimated 303 words in 1 minute 46, which is a pace of about 172 words a minute, comfortably inside the 2-minute limit. Now look at the split. The first 3 bullets are 3 separate questions, and together they take 1 minute 7. The explain bullet is a single question, and on its own it takes 39 seconds, which is 37% of the whole answer. That makes it the largest single share, and that is not an accident. That is the plan working. Also notice what is not there. No memorized opening, no listing. No connector words holding the answer together like scaffolding. Now part 3. This is a discussion, 4 to 5 minutes, and the questions move away from you personally and out towards society in general. The examiner can interrupt, can push back, and can ask you to justify what you just said. The single biggest difference between a band 7 and a band 9 here is not vocabulary. It is willingness to take a position and then complicate it yourself before the examiner has to. One thing worth flagging before we start: 4 of these 6 questions are printed with non-standard grammar on the source card. We are showing them exactly as written, and then giving you the phrasing a real examiner would actually use. In the test, answer the meaning, not the typo. Question first. What are the characteristics that good co-workers need? Here is how to approach it. Lead with one unglamorous answer, not a list of 3 adjectives. Justify why it matters before adding a second point. Close with a contrast that shows range.
Reliability is the one I put first. Honestly, someone who does what they said they'd do by when they said they'd do it. That sounds unglamorous, but it's the foundation everything else is on. Beyond that, I'd say the ability to disagree without making it personal. The best teams I've been on argued constantly about the work and never about each other.
Question second. As printed on the card, what benefits if you are surrounded by good co-workers? What that is asking is, what are the benefits of being surrounded by good co-workers? Here is how to approach it. Name the obvious benefit, then immediately go past it. The bigger one is signals depth without sounding rehearsed. Finish with a mechanism, not just an outcome.
The obvious benefit is that the work simply gets better, but I think the bigger one is psychological. When you trust the people around you, you're willing to admit you're stuck. And admitting you're stuck early is exactly what stops small problems turning into expensive ones. There's also a fairly straightforward learning effect. You absorb the habits of whoever you sit next to, whether you mean to or not.
Question third. As printed on the card, what would happen if the co-workers are not good? What that is asking is, what would happen if your co-workers were not good? Here is how to approach it. Answer with a process, not an adjective. Describe how it unfolds. Gradual rather than dramatic is a band 9 style contrast. End on a consequence that bites.
It's corrosive, and it's usually gradual rather than dramatic. What tends to happen is that people stop putting things in writing. They start protecting themselves rather than solving problems, and information stops moving around the team. And once the good people notice that, they leave, which means you're left with precisely the colleagues who caused the problem in the first place.
Question fourth. As printed on the card, are there values if managers build good relationships with the workers who work underneath them? What that is asking is there value in managers building good relationships with the people who report to them? Here is how to approach it. Commit to a position first, then qualify it, though I'd add a caveat buys you a second, richer point. A short parallel closer lands the answer cleanly.
Definitely, though I'd add a caveat. A manager who's approachable will hear about problems weeks earlier than one who isn't, and that's worth an enormous amount. The caveat is that closeness isn't the same thing as fairness. If a manager becomes genuinely friendly with some of the team, but not others, that's exactly when you get resentment. So on to yes. Favoritism and no.
Question 5. As printed on the card, is it good for workers if the company applies sports facilities for them? What that is asking is it good for workers if a company provides sports facilities? Here is how to approach it. Agree but refuse to be enthusiastic. Skepticism reads as maturity. Give the condition under which it fails, then the condition under which it works. One concrete image beats 3 abstractions.
On balance, yes, but I'd be a little skeptical about how much it achieves on its own. A gym in the basement doesn't help anybody who's too busy to use it, so if the culture still rewards staying until 8 at night, the facilities are basically decorative. Where it genuinely works is when the time to use them is protected. Then you do see real benefits, both physical and in terms of people mixing across departments.
Question 6. Are knowledgeable people popular at work? Here is how to approach it. Reject the premise gently, separate 2 words the question merges. Explain when the opposite happens. Land on what actually causes the outcome.
They're respected, which isn't quite the same as popular. Expertise on its own can actually be fairly isolating, especially if the person makes everyone else feel slow. What makes knowledgeable people genuinely popular is generosity with what they know, the willingness to explain something twice without any hint of impatience. That's the part people remember, far more than the knowledge itself.
2 language banks before we finish. The first one is for describing people, pulled straight out of the long turn you just heard. Do not memorize these as a block. Take 2. Use them this week until they stop feeling borrowed. Then come back for 2 more. The second bank is the part 3 machinery. These are the moves that let you agree and still say something interesting. Notice that almost every one of them is a way of adding a second, more complicated thought to a first simple one. And here is what the 4 criteria are actually asking for at the top of the scale. Read the third one carefully. Band 9 does not mean 0 errors. It means the errors you make are the kind a native speaker would also make. That should be a relief. Your challenge, then, take the cue card, set a timer, plan for exactly 1 minute using the lopsided method, and record yourself speaking for 2. Then listen back once, with 1 question in your head. Did I explain, or did I only describe? That single question is worth more practice than any word list. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.